Hello and welcome to this fifth and last part of the TvTCF tutorial. I am very glad that you have followed along this far, and this video will give you the last piece in how to create fantastic multiplayer campaigns very easily. Here we have what will be covered in this video. The main part of this video is the third one in this list, create the new Make It or Break It mission. But before that, we will very quickly update the TvTCF framework since there are rumors of a new available version, and we will rename some files in our project. And except for the mission class, there is also a campaign class with the purpose of keeping our missions together and to execute them in a special order. So as the first thing, we will now update the framework. We open the CPEG console and type list. And here we can see that there's a new framework version available. So we type update engima.tvtcf and press enter. The CPEG manager downloads and inserts all the updated files for us. The second thing to do before we start creating the new mission will be to rename some of the files in our campaign. The name's My Campaign for a campaign called Operation Blue Badge, and the name Intro for a mission called Door Breach aren't good enough. So we do the following. First, we change the names of the folders and the files. Then we update all references or includes to these files. We change the class names in these files. It's always a good thing to have the file names match the class names. We then update all references to these classes. And to be complete, we also need to update the namespace to be unique. And as the last step, we update the framework's bootstrapper class, so the correct campaign is returned to the campaign engine that is executing the campaign. Okay, this little renaming factor is now complete, and it's time to begin creating the new mission. So we open our campaign's missions folder and add a new file for the mission. We call it Make It or Break It.sqx, and we also select the empty class template. Author is Engima. As a description, we write acting, the side rescuing a survivor, and opposing, the side searching for the wreck. The namespace will be campaigns.bluebadge, just like for the Door Breach mission. This is now an empty SQX class. Right above the class, we add some usings that we will need, and we can copy the ones in the Door Breach mission. By doing this, we can use all classes in these namespaces without having to specify their full names. You can read about the using keyword on the SQX reference page right here. Now, to turn this empty Make It or Break It class into a mission, we will inherit the mission class by, after the name, add : mission. As you can see, we now got an error message here. If we go to the mission class, we can see that it has a constructor. The constructor is a method that is executed when an object is created with a new command. And if the base class, this class we are inheriting from, has a constructor, then our subclass will need a constructor with a call to that constructor. So in the constructor of the Make It or Break It class, we add call_base.constructor. Base is a local variable that we get for free, just like the variable self, and it represents the base class instance. So what we actually do here is to call the constructor method of the mission class. For more complete information about constructor, base, and self, please check the SQX reference page. While we're in the initialization phase of this mission, we also override the method initMission and set the mission's name. Okay, so what do we have here? This is actually our new mission, and it's already fully playable. But it will be that survive mission, exactly like the default intro mission that we played in part 3 of this tutorial. Before we try it, we will need to do two things though, and that is to include it somewhere. That is telling Arma where this file should be loaded, and we also need to add it to the campaign. As I've mentioned earlier, all the campaign's files are included in the init campaign.sqx file. So we copy this line for the Door Breach mission and change it to fit the Make It or Break It mission. Then we open the campaign file, operationbluebadge.sqx, and in this select missions method, we add a new Make It or Break It mission object. This method is called when the campaign starts, and it creates instances of all the missions that will be played, and if you do nothing more, they will be executed one by one after each other in this given order. However, while we create a make it or break it mission, we don't want to play through the door breach mission every time we want to test something, so we comment this out for now. Let's also get rid of these example lines here. Okay, we've done a lot of changes since the last build, so we do a full rebuild now just to be safe. I've told you earlier that all areas and positions that we need for a mission are defined using map markers. So we begin our new mission in the Arma editor by adding the markers that we need. A benefit of this is that it is very easy to port a mission to another map, since you will only need to copy the markers and adjust their positions on the new map. Now, when the rebuild has completed, we can play the mission. The mission name appears and the survive object is showing. Okay, but what will the make it or break it mission be about? Here's the twist. The acting side has a helicopter base here in Svaca, and they will fly in from the south in the cover of these mountains to rescue a survivor after a helicopter crash. They will now have 3 objectives. The primary objectives will be to find a survivor and get him into the rescue helicopter. The secondary objective will be to blow up the downed helicopter, and the third objective will be to return to the helicopter base. The opposing side will insert somewhere near Edessa, and its player will have one objective, and that is to find the downed helicopter and search it for interesting information. And the opposing side will have anti-air defense in Edessa, unless the acting side succeeded with their first mission to clean out the village. We begin by adding the markers necessary to fulfill the objectives. First, the acting side will need its helicopter base in Svaca. The acting players will insert here, so we create an insertion area marker, and we name it MO2A_insertion. We also need the position where we will place the helicopter. So we add an empty marker and call it MO2A_helicopter. Now we need a place where we will put the downed helicopter. And let's put it here somewhere near this dump. We add an objective marker. This one will be visible for the acting players, and we name it MO2A_crash site. We also add the text crash site to it. Now we need to use these in our mission class. First, we add the insertion area marker to the insertion area's acting array, and then the crash site marker to the visible markers acting array. And we also need to do the same for the opposing side. We add an opposing insertion marker here at Kavirida. And in Edessa, we also add a marker for the position of an eventual anti-air unit. We also rotate it so it is aimed to the south, and we call it MO2O_AA unit. And in the code, we add the opposing side's insertion marker into the insertion area's opposing array. Now, of course, we should make this mission as exciting and thought through for the opposing side as for the acting side. But for the purpose of this demonstration, we will now be satisfied by having the opposing side just technically playable and not so much more. So from now on, we will put the effort into the mechanics of the acting side. Let's add the briefing for both sides. We do it in the same way, overriding the same methods as we did in the last video for the door breach mission. And then the objectives. In the last mission, both sides had one single objective each, the primary objective. In this mission, the acting side will also have a secondary objective, so we override the add secondary objective acting method. Okay, when that is done, we build a file with Ctrl B, and let's see what we have. The primary objective pops up. The briefing looks fine. And we also see the crash site marker. And we have two tasks, find survivor and destroy helicopter. Insertion at the helicopter base also works, but it's totally empty. So now it's about to create some units. We will now need to override another method, the setup method. This method is called from the campaign engine right when the mission starts, and it's in this phase of the mission lifecycle that the mission's objects and units are to be created. And the first object that we create will be the acting side's rescue helicopter. When we want to create an object like this, we can use one of the create methods on the mission class. So if we write self.create, we can see the alternatives that we have. The first methods are used to create AI soldiers, and this one is used to create markers. Then these methods here are used to create vehicles and objects. The most primitive of these functions is the create vehicle method, to which you simply provide a vehicle class name and a position. That can sometimes be useful, but the methods with side in its name are probably the ones you will find most useful most of the time. These methods create a vehicle that matches the actual side for acting or opposing. That is, if you play west and acting, then an acting unit will be a westerly unit, while if you play east and acting, then an acting unit will be an easterly unit. And since we want the sides to be interchangeable, we don't know now, during design time, which side the unit will be on. We only know that it will be a unit belonging to the opposing side. And since we have a marker for it, we will use this method, create side vehicle on marker. Let's also check the documentation. That is this method's comments in the base class, which is the mission class. Here we can see what the method returns and which parameters to provide, an alias for the unit to create, a marker, and a mission side, which is an enum with the values acting or opposing. Here we can see that the expected alias is not the class name. Instead, it is a dictionary alias, and these we can find in the vehicle dictionary class in the shared folder here. There's also a dictionary for soldier units that is used for the create side AI soldier methods. So we open the vehicle dictionary to see if there is a suitable object that we can use. And in the helicopter section, we have the transport helicopter. And here we can also see the exact class name depending on the side that is evaluated out of this alias. This one is the westerly vehicle class, and this one is the easterly. So we copy this value and we paste it as the first parameter to the create side vehicle method. The second parameter is a marker, so we write mo2a underscore helicopter, and for the third parameter we send in the mission side of the unit, which will be mission side dot acting. These methods return the created unit, so to keep a reference to the unit in a variable, we can do this. However, this is how we declare a local variable for use in this scope only. In this case, we want to reach this variable from other methods of the class. So instead, we declare this as a field in the class, like this. I usually add the letter M to make it clear that this is a member variable, so I will never confuse it with other local variables. Let's now see if we can see the helicopter. Great. So we simply do the same with the anti-air units in Edessa. There's no need to save the reference in a field, so we skip that part. But in contrast to the helicopter, we want this to be manned by AI units. So we continue and address the two optional parameters. The first one, we send in true if we want the framework to check for collisions. But since we know that we want to spawn it on the exact spot of the marker and there will be no collisions, we send in false. For the last parameter, we send in true, which will give us an AI manned vehicle instead of an unmanned vehicle. Then we want to create a helicopter on the crash side. We want to save the reference in a class field, and we skip the optional parameters since the helicopter will be unmanned. We don't want players to be able to fly away with that helicopter, because then it will. So let's add some damage to it and empty its fuel tank. We also want to create the surviving officer somewhere near the downed helicopter. This time, we use the create side AI soldier method, and we pick the alias from the soldier dictionary instead of from the vehicle dictionary. We place the officer 10 meters away from the helicopter. And as for the helicopter, we will need to reference this later, so we add a private field for this too. If we now are to blow up the helicopter before we leave the area, we will also need some explosives. This is something that we will bring from our base before insertion. So we will use this method, create side vehicle in base. The first parameter will be the vehicle, which in this case is ammo box ordnance. The second is a base marker enum, so we send in base marker.ammo crate. And the third will be the mission side.acting. Of course you can, and you should, continue adding ambient units and everything that you want to be there for the sake of immersion. But I think this will be what we need for the purpose of this tutorial. The next part will be the check objective state methods. And like in the previous mission, we start by overriding the method check primary objective state acting. The primary objective for the acting side is to find the survivor. Let's say that the survivor is found when he's inside the rescue helicopter. And then, are there any fail conditions? Yes. The objective will fail if the rescue helicopter crashes or if it cannot move for one reason or another. And what if the survivor dies before we reach him? I'd say that is a fail condition too. So we have the following. And if all acting units die, of course we have a fail condition too. But we don't have to specify that, because the mission will fail all remaining objectives automatically if that happens. I think we have covered the important cases, so let's do the same for the acting's secondary objective. The secondary objective is to destroy the helicopter, and that one is easy. The only thing that can have it succeed is if the helicopter is dead. The opposing side also has a primary objective, so we also need to monitor that. Let's say that the players of the opposing side succeed if they reach the downed helicopter before it is destroyed. Then we will return succeeded if one unit is within 25 meters from it. And let's not forget that this must be true before the acting side has destroyed it. Okay, are there any fail conditions? Well, we just mentioned one, and that is if the downed helicopter is destroyed before an opposing unit gets there. If we don't handle that, and if the acting side gets there first, then all players will need to wait for the mission to time out, and that's boring. Now, have we forgotten anything? You may say, yes, what about that return objective? I'm glad you're asking. That one is the easiest of them all. The framework knows very well how to handle return objectives, so we simply go to the init mission method again and add this one line. Mission.hasReturnObjectiveActing equals true. But there's one more thing that we need before we get this mission playable. We don't have the code yet that makes the survivor actually enter the rescue helicopter. And for that, I will show you how to use the action menu in a mission. We will add an action menu item to the survivor, which will be enter the rescue helicopter. When an acting player selects it, he will move to it and jump in. So we go to the setup method again. After the survivor has been created, we add an action to him with help from the Add Action menu of the mission class. This method takes 3 arguments. First, the object that will have the action menu item, that is the survivor. Then the text of the action menu, and at last, the side of the players that will be able to use it. The method returns an action ID, and we will save this in a class field. To perform something when a player selects an action menu item, we will override the method onAction. While we have one action only, we don't really have to save the action ID, but for best practice and for demonstration purposes, we will also check to see if we are performing the correct action in case we would have more than one. Okay, let's see if all this works as intended. We must not forget to build the file, and then we head over to Arma. We have seen the mission name and the mission objective before. In the tasks section, we now see that we have 3 objectives, including this third fully automatic return objective. There should also be an ordnance box around. Here it is. We pick up an explosive charge, and then we perform an insertion. Here we can see the return arrow that comes with the return objective, and here's our ride. Just to avoid being killed by the anti-air unit, we will do a turn around Odessa to enter the valley from the east. And I think we have found the crash site, a broken helicopter and a survivor. We move to the survivor, and with the action menu, we tell him to enter the rescue helicopter. The primary objective condition seems to work. Now let's get on with our secondary objective. We place the explosive charge here and go back to the helicopter. Boom! Our secondary objective is complete. So let's get out of here and fulfill the last return to insertion point objective. And yes, we made it. There's one little tiny thing left in this mission. If you remember, I promised you that the anti-air defense will be removed if the acting side succeeded with the door breach mission. That will be a simple thing, but it requires that we make a small change to the door breach mission. Right here, where the acting's primary objective is set to succeeded, we will add self.token. A token is any string of our choice. The tokens we add to these properties will live across the whole campaign. For each side, there are 2 token arrays, one for gain tokens and one for lost tokens. Anyone can be used. It's just a matter of semantics, but this time it feels best to regard the anti-air unit as something that the opposing side lost when the acting side cleaned out Odessa, if they now did. So we write self.losttokensOpposing, because it was the opposing side that lost it, pushback AA unit. Now we go back to the make it or break it mission again, and the line where we add the static AA launcher. We surround it with if not AA unit in self.losttokens lost tokens opposing. Then. Now the static anti-air launcher will only be added to this mission if a unit does not exist in the lost tokens array for the opposing side. Let's count the lines. I think we have completed a fairly advanced mission in like 50 lines of code, not counting empty lines and lines with just one curly bracket. Well, if I were to release this, I'd do some polishing, and as I mentioned, I would add ambient unit, randomizing the position of the downed helicopter, and I'd put some more anti-air defenses on the other side of the surrounding hills, and so on. But that will be nothing new, so I'll leave that up to you. As one last thing to complete the campaign, we also need to complete the campaign class. So we open Operation Blue Badge.sqx once more, and uncomment this line to enable the door breach mission again. And just to show you, if you want more control of the order of which the missions are played, you can override this getNextMission method that is called after each mission. By default, it will return the next mission from the list defined here, but if the campaign is played in storyline mode, you can return just any mission you like from this method. Okay. This concludes the TvTCF tutorial. There are more features in the framework that you can explore yourself. Read through the comment documentations in the files campaign.sqx and mission.sqx, and you'll get a lot of ideas about what you can do. Please ask me on the forums if you want help with anything, and thank you for watching.